Elon, I, the Tetragrammaton, the Lord God Most High, I do exercise thee, and do powerfully command thee in spirit. Elon, I, the Tetragrammaton, the Lord God Most High, I do exercise thee, and do powerfully command.
In the dark shadows, in the white cold, fearlessly we search for knowledge new and old. We drink the strong spirits and read the ancient tomes. The order of the Abracast. We are the brave and the bold. Occult, history, conspiracy, and violence.
Hello everybody, thank you for tuning in. This is the Abracast, and I am your host, John Towers. And we're going to be continuing on our discussion of Exodus this evening. And we're going to be going from the Bible to Ginsburg's Legends of the Jews. We're going to get into a lot of good stuff. So I don't want to take too much time babbling here at the beginning, but there is something I wanted to talk about, which was the "Fear Not and Be Not Terrified" T-shirt. So a few of these Exodus episodes ago, we were talking about these angels of wrath that are made of fire and chains, and they stood all, they were like super tall or whatever. I did some artwork for it. Just to kind of do something with it, and I threw it up on Instagram. I put it on a t-shirt. It's pretty cool. It's Metatron and Moses looking up at this giant, kind of Jack Kirby-esque. I don't throw that around quite often. My style is not Jack Kirby-esque. Okay, so maybe I should say it's more like celestial. I don't know, whatever. Anyhow, it's a cool shirt. It's up there if you guys want to check it out, or just check out the graphic at my Instagram. And I guess that's really all that I wanted to say. I hope everybody is safe tomorrow for Labor Day. Remember, they're out there. They are looking for you. They don't care about which one of your rights they trample all over with their bullshit, what do they call them, rolling checkpoints and all this fucking other illegal bullshit that they do. So be mindful of that. Call one of those Ubers. They still got those things. They still got those Ubers. So do something like that. Exodus 7. Then the Lord said to Moses, "See, I have made you like a god to Pharaoh, and your brother Aaron will be like your prophet. You are to say everything I command you, and your brother Aaron is to tell Pharaoh to let the Israelites go out of his country. But I will harden Pharaoh's heart, and though I will multiply my miraculous signs and wonders in Egypt, he will not listen to you. And then I will lay my hand on Egypt with the mighty axe of judgment. I will bring out my divisions, my people, the Israelites and the Egyptians will know that I am the Lord when I stretch out my hand against Egypt and bring the Israelites out of it." Moses and Aaron did just as the Lord commanded. Moses was 80 years old and Aaron was 83 when they spoke to Pharaoh. I have my Abracast vessel of the art here, filled with my weapon of mass distraction, the Jin Jihad. And now let's go to Ginsburg's Legends of the Jews. Moses and Aaron before Pharaoh. The day Moses and Aaron made their appearance before Pharaoh happened to be the anniversary of his birth. And he was surrounded by many kings, for he was the ruler of the whole world. And this was the occasion on which kings of the earth came to him to do homage. When the attendants announced Moses and Aaron, Pharaoh inquired whether the two old men had brought him crowns. And receiving a negative reply, he ordered that they were not to be admitted in his presence until he had seen and dismissed all others desirous of paying him their respects. Pharaoh's palace was surrounded by a vast army and was built with 400 entrances, 100 on each side, and each of them guarded by 60,000 soldiers. Moses and Aaron were overawed with the display of power, and they were afraid. But the angel Gabriel appeared and led them into the palace, observed by none of the guards, and Pharaoh decreed severe punishment upon the inattentive sentinels for having admitted the old men without his permission. They were dismissed and others put in their place, but the same thing happened the next day. Moses and Aaron within the palace, and the new guard had not been able to hinder their passing. Pharaoh questioned his servants. Now it had been possible for the two old men to enter, and they said, "We know not. Through the doors they did not come surely. They must be magicians." Not enough that the palace was guarded by a host at each entrance. 2 lions were stationed, and in terror of being torn to pieces, none dared approach the doors, and none could go until the lion tamer came out and led the beasts away. Now Balaam and all other scared sacred scribes of Egypt advised that the keepers lose the lions at the approach of Moses and Aaron, but their advice availed not. Moses had but to raise his rod, and the lions bounded towards him joyously and followed at his feet, gambolling like dogs before their masters on his return home. Within the palace, Moses and Aaron found 70 secretaries busy with Pharaoh's correspondence, which was carried out in 70 languages. At the sight of the messengers of Israel, they started up in great awe, for the 2 men resembled angels. Their statures, they were as the cedars of Lebanon. Their countenance radiated splendor like the sun, and their pupils of their eyes were like the sphere of the morning star, and their beards were like palm branches, and their mouths emitted flames when they opened them for speech. In their terror, the secretaries flung down pen and paper and prostrated themselves before Moses and Aaron. So there's something to be talked about here briefly, and that is this idea that whatever went on with Moses, whatever happens to him, he transforms. He becomes, like here they're talking about, like an angel. He doesn't look like a regular old dude. You know, he's got fire shooting out of his fucking face, and his eyes have like laser beams and stuff. And this is something that's not just in the Legends of the Jews. This is something that's in like the tradition, in Renaissance artwork that deal with Moses, specifically statuaries and stuff like this. You'll see him being depicted with like glowing horns, like laser horns. And you know, this is all a throwback to the procession of the ages. There, Moses is like the avatar of the right now at least, the age of Aries. This bit is going to come up here later in the story about worshiping rams and slaughtering lambs and all of this kind of, it all just kind of plays into this. And in my last graphic novel, The Ages, spoiler alert, is all about Cain. And Cain is cursed and marked by God. And in the story, just like here, Moses is sort of blessed and marked by God. And in The Ages, there's a brief encounter where Cain seeks Moses out, and they kind of are like a foil against each other, because one's a curse and is cursed and is marked, and one is blessed and is marked. And, you know, later he's going to be carrying around a telephone to talk to God, which Cain really wants to do. Anyhow, I just thought I'd bring that up, and some of the artwork and stuff surrounding or about Moses when he's got these horns, or he's like all his head's on fire and this kind of stuff is really weird. I thought it was worth mentioning. Now the two representatives of the children of Israel step before Pharaoh, and they spake. The God of the Hebrews hath met with us, and let us go. We pay thee 3 days' journey into the wilderness, and sacrifice unto the Lord our God, lest he fall upon us with pestilence or with the sword. So the offset here, his petition is just for a 3-day journey into the wilderness, so they could get far enough away from Egypt to do their sacrificing and whatnot to God. Pharaoh answered and saying, What is the name of your God? Wherein doth his strength consist, and his power? How many countries, how many provinces, how many cities hath he under his dominion? And how many campaigns was he victorious? How many lands did he make subject to himself? How many cities did he capture when he goeth to war? How many warriors, riders, chariots, and charioteers doth he lead forth? Whereto Moses and Aaron replied. This is heavy metal. Buckle up for this. Moses and Aaron replied, His strength and his power fill the whole world. His voice heweth out of flame and fire. His words break mountains in pieces. The heaven is his throne, and the earth is his footstool. His bow is fire, his arrows are flames, his spear torches, his shield clouds, and his sword lightning flashes. He created the mountains and the valleys, and he brought forth spirits and souls. Then he stretched out the earth by a word. He made the mountains with his wisdom, and he forms the embryo in the womb of his mother, and he covers the heavens with clouds. At his word, the dew and the rain descend earthward. He causes plants to grow from the ground, and he nourishes and sustains the whole world, from the horns upon the ram down to the eggs of vermin. Every day he causes men to die, and every day he calls men to life. I'd just like to point out the ram stuff here. Pharaoh answered. Pharaoh is a hard-headed motherfucker, dude. Pharaoh answers, I have no need of him. I've created myself. And if ye say that he causes dew and rain to descend, I have the Nile, the river that hath at its source under the tree of life. And the ground is impregnated by its waters, bear fruit so huge that it takes 2 asses to carry it. And it is palatable beyond description, for it has 300 different tastes. Then Pharaoh sent to fetch the books of the chronicles of his kingdom from his archives, wherein are recorded the names of the gods of all the nations, to see whether the name of the God of the Hebrews was among them, and he read off the gods of Moab, the gods of Ammon, the gods of Zidon. I do not find your God inscribed in these archives. Moses and Aaron exclaimed, "O thou fool! Thou seekest the living in the graves of the dead. These which thou didst read are the names of dumb idols. But our God is the God of life and the King of eternal life." And Pharaoh said the words, "I know not the Lord." God himself made answer, saying, "O you rascal, thou sayest to my ambassadors, I know not the strength and the power of your God. Lo, I will make thee stand to show thee my power, and that my name may be declared throughout all the earth." Having searched his list of the gods of the nations in vain for mention of the God of the Hebrews, Pharaoh cited before him the wise men of Egypt, and he said to them, "Have ye ever heard the name of the God of these people?" They replied, "We have been told that he is a son of the wise, the son of ancient kings." Then spake God, saying, "O ye fools, ye call yourselves wise men, but me you call only the son of the wise. Verily, I will set at naught all your wisdom and your understanding." So I wonder if this is God, like, watching this from heaven, and he's kind of ranting to himself. They're like, they said he's the son of wisdom, or the wise. He's the son of ancient kings, and he's like watching them through like a portal, like he's in heaven. He's like, "These motherfuckers, they don't even know what I'm about to do to them." He's like, "Watch this shit." Pharaoh persisted in his obduracy, even after Moses and Aaron had performed the miracle of the rod, the time when the two Hebrews succeeded in entering the palace, guarded as it was by lions. Pharaoh had sent for his magicians, at their head Balaam and his two sons Yanez and Jambres, and they appeared to him. He told them of the extraordinary incident, how the lions had followed the two old men like dogs and fawned upon them. And it was Balaam's opinion that they were simple magicians like himself and his companions, and he prayed the king to have them come before him together with themselves to test who were the master magicians, the Egyptians or the Hebrews. So this is the basis of the Three of Wands, my tarot card deck, is this magic duel that's about to take place right here. Of course, this is the Legend of the Jews, so it's beefed up a little bit. In the Bible, it's just three rods, but here they go a little crazy. Pharaoh called for Moses and Aaron and said to them, "Who will believe you when you say that you are the ambassadors of God, as you pretend to be, if you do not convince men by performing wonders?" Thereupon Aaron cast his rod to the ground, and it became a serpent, and the Pharaoh laughed out loud. "What?" he exclaimed. "Is this all your God can do?" It is the way of merchants to carry merchandise to a place if there is none of it there. But would anyone take brine to Spain or fish to a Chew? It seems you do not know that I am an adept in all sorts of magic. And he ordered the little school children to be brought, and they repeated the wonders done by Moses and Aaron. Indeed, Pharaoh's own wife performed it, and Yanez and Jambres, the sons of Balaam, derided Moses, saying, "You carry straw to Ephron." Whereto Moses answered, "To the place of many vegetables, thither carry vegetables." To show the Egyptians that Aaron could do something with his rod that their magicians could not imitate, God caused the serpent into which his rod had been changed to swallow up all the other rods of the magicians. But Balaam and his associates said, "There is nothing marvelous or astonishing in this feat. Your serpent but devoured our serpents, which is in accordance to the law of nature." one living being devours another. If thou wishes us to acknowledge that the Spirit of God worketh in thee, then cast thy rod to earth. And if being wood it swallows up our rods of wood, then we shall acknowledge the Spirit of the God is in thee. And Aaron stood the test. After his rod had resumed its original form, it swallowed up the rods of the Egyptians, and yet its bulk showed no increase. This caused Pharaoh to reflect whether this wonderful rod of Aaron might not swallow up also him and his throne. Nevertheless, he refused to obey behest of God to let Israel go, saying, I had Jacob, Israel himself here before me, and I should put trowel and bucket on his shoulders. And to Moses and Aaron he said, because ye, like all the rest of the tribe of Levi, are not compelled to labor, therefore do ye speak, let us go and sacrifice to the Lord. If you had asked for 1,000 people or 2,000, should I have fulfilled your request? But never will I consent to let 600,000 men go away. So the suffering increases. And I think this part of the story is interesting because it's sort of a way to... I mean, we're going to see all kinds of miraculous things happen when these plagues start coming down. Like the frogs will only go into the houses of the Egyptians, and the frogs only go to the borders of Ethiopia and so forth. But I feel like it's interesting that the suffering of the Israelites increases because he's so crazy about hardening Pharaoh's heart during this whole exercise. And he was like, I'll harden his heart. He won't give in to you what you're asking. It's like God's playing chess and he's controlling both sides of the pieces. And he creates the situation where the suffering increases for the Israelites. It almost seems like it's kind of like, because he has to have a reason to punish all of Egypt and not just the Pharaoh or the Pharaoh's people or the government institutions. He has to find a reason to cause suffering for all of the Egyptians. And so he puts himself in this, he puts Moses and Aaron in this position where they're demanding things of Pharaoh, and because Pharaoh's getting hot and bothered about it, everyone's kind of taking it out on all of the Israelites. So before refusing to dismiss the children of Israel, he ordered on the very day of Moses and Aaron's audience with him that the people are required to deliver the prescribed tale of bricks through the taskmasters were not heretofore to give them straw to make bricks. Another decree was that the children of Israel were not permitted to rest on the Sabbath, for the Pharaoh knew that they used the leisure for reading the rolls that described their redemption. All of this was part of God's plan. The oppression of Israel was to be increased closer to the end approached. As they wandered up and down the land of Egypt, gathering straw they needed for the due tale of bricks, they were maltreated by the Egyptians. If they caught them on their fields, such unkind acts were perpetrated by the whole of the people and made it impossible for them to cast the entire blame for bondage upon Israel upon Pharaoh. All the Egyptians showed cruelty to all of the Israelites in the straw foraging expeditions, and therefore the divine punishment descended upon all alike. This frightful time of Israel's extreme suffering lasted 6 months. Meantime, Moses went to Midian, leaving Aaron alone in Egypt. And when Moses returned at the end of the reign of terror, 2 Israelite-ish officers accosted him and Aaron and heaped abuse upon them, saying, for having increased the woes of their people rather than diminished them. And they spake, saying, if you are truly the ambassadors of God, then may he judge between us and Pharaoh. But if you seek to bring about the redemption of Israel on your own account, then may God judge between you and Israel. They are responsible for the widespread stench now issuing from Israelite-ish corpses used as bricks for building. When our tale was not complete, the Egyptians had but a faint suspicion that we were waiting for our redemption. It is your fault. They are fully conscious of it now. We are in the quandary of the poor sheep that have been dragged away by the wolf. So it just goes on to do this shepherd's analogy. But there's something that I also need to bring up here where it is talked about as using human beings as bricks. And this is something that was hinted to in certain traditions regarding the Tower of Babel. And in this some sort of weird body horror idea that a human being is being turned into bricks for, building, the Tower of Babel, or, whatever these blasphemous buildings the Egyptians are building. I'm thinking about it now, and I'm thinking about the pyramids, right? And I'm like, what if, at the beginning of our story, when we were talking about God as a God of the mountain, and then we're going to see this echoed again once Moses and the Israelites get into the, spoiler alert, when they get into the wilderness, they escape Egypt, and Moses goes up to Mount Sinai to receive the law, and he gets to see God's ass and all this other kind of stuff. What if one of the blasphemies that they're doing is they're creating this fake mountain range in Egypt? One of these things where God's just like, fuck that. I'm the god of mountains around here. I don't know what this shit's all about. So that's just something that just popped into my brain as I'm reading through this. So these two officers are giving Moses and Aaron shit. The two officers that spake these stinging words were Dathan and Abiram. It was neither the first nor the last time they inflicted injury upon Moses. The other Israelitish officers were gentle and kind, and they permitted themselves to be beaten by the taskmaster rather than prod the laborers of their own people put under their surveillance. The cruel suffering to which the people was exposed caused Moses to speak to God thus: I have read the book of Genesis through and found the doom in it pronounced upon the generations of the deluge. And it was a just judgment. And I also found the punishments decreed against the generations of the confusion of tongues and against the inhabitants of Sodom. These two were just. But what hath this nation of Israel done unto thee, that it is oppressed more than any other nation in history? Is it because Abraham said, whereby shall I know that I shall inherit the land? And thou didst rebuke him for his small faith, saying, know that of surety that thy seed shall be a stranger in the land that is not theirs. Why then are not the descendants of Esau and Ishmael held in bondage too? Are they not likewise of the seed of Abraham? But if thou wilt say, what concern is it of mine, then I ask thee, why didst thou send me hither as thy messenger? Thy great, exalted, and terrible name is feared on all the earth, yet Pharaoh heard me pronounce it, and he refuses obedience. And I know thou wilt redeem Israel in thine own good time. And it is of little moment to thee now. They are immuring living Israelites in these buildings. Were he a God of justice only, the Lord would have slain Moses for the audacity of his last words. But in view of having spoken as he had only out of compassion with Israel, the Lord dealt graciously with him. And he answered Moses, saying, thou shalt see what I will do to Pharaoh. The words conveying to Moses that although he would be a witness to the chastisement of Pharaoh, he would not be present at that the 31 kings of Canaan. Thus he was rebuked for an unbecoming language that he had used in addressing God. At the same time, God's words were the rejoinder to another speech by Moses. And he said, O Lord of the world, I know well that thou wilt bring thy children forth from Egypt. Oh, that thou wouldest make use of another instrument, for I am not worthy of being the redeemer of thy children. And God was like, eye roll, scoff, answered thereto, yes, Moses, thou art worthy thereof. Through thee my children will be brought forth out of Egypt. Thou shalt see what I will do to Pharaoh. At the same time, God called him to account for having so little faith. He said, oh, for the departed, their like cannot be found anymore. He's basically just like, Moses, millennials, psh, am I right? I appeared to Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob as El Shaddai, God Almighty, but I was not known to them by my name Adonai, God all-merciful, as I appeared unto thee. Nevertheless, they did not cast aspersions upon my acts. I spake to Abraham, unto thee will I give the land. But when he was about to bury Sarah, he had to pay out silver and buy a resting place for her body. And yet he did not find fault with me. And I spake to Isaac, and I said, unto thee, and unto thy seed, I will give you all these lands. But when he desired water to drink, he had to strive with the herdsmen of Gerar, and yet he did not find fault with me. And I spake to Jacob, and I said, there, the land whereupon thou liest, to thee I will give it, and to thy seed. But when he wanted to spread his tent and acquire a parcel of ground for 100 pieces of money, and yet he did not find fault with me. None of them asked to know my name, but thou didst demand to know it at the very first. When I desired to send thee down into Egypt, and after I revealed to thee, thou didst speak, saying, thou didst tell me that thou art called compassionate and gracious, long-suffering and merciful. But as soon as I pronounced this name before Pharaoh, misfortune descended upon the people of Israel. Now I desire to fulfill my covenant with the patriarchs and give their posterity to the promised land as a reward for the unquestioning faith of our fathers, and also as a reward to the people who, in spite of their suffering, did not find fault with my deeds. For this will I give them the land which they do not deserve to possess for other reasons. I swear that I will do this. God pronounced this oath to banish all fear from the mind of Moses, and he might act only in accordance with his attribute of justice, and thus delay the redemption of Israel for a time on the account of the sins of the people. Now the redemption of Israel was a settled fact, but before Moses and Aaron could start on the work of delivering their people, God called various points of attention in which he bade them to consider in their undertaking. He spake to them, saying, my children are perverse, passionate, and troublesome. You must be prepared to stand their abuse to the length of being pelted with by stones by them. And I send you to Pharaoh, and although I will punish him accordingly to his deserts, yet you must not fall in the respect due to him as a ruler. Furthermore, be careful to take the elders of the people into your council, and let your first step towards redemption be to make the people give up the worship of idols. The last was the most difficult task, and the words of God concerning it rung with exclamation from Moses. See, the children of Israel will not hearken unto me. How then should Pharaoh hearken unto me? It was the third time Moses declined to go on the errand of God, and now the divine patience was exhausted, and Moses was subjected to punishment. At first, God had revealed himself only to Moses, and the original intention had been that he alone was to perform all the miracles. But henceforth, the word of God was addressed to Aaron as well, and he was given a share in the doings of the wonders. So that's it. Time is up for Pharaoh in Egypt. It's only a matter of how long it's going to go on. And God has this plan. Now that he's got these two brothers, Moses and Aaron, and he's got himself, And he gets this plan together, and he kind of lays out what is going to happen, right? So we kind of get a preview to the chaos and suffering and murder that's about to happen in our story in the next episode. So this section's called Measure for Measure. God divided the 10 punishments decreed for Egypt into 4 parts. 3 of the plagues he committed to Aaron, 3 to Moses, one to both of the brothers together, and then 3 he reserved for himself. Aaron was charged with those that proceeded from the earth and the water, the elements that are composed of more or less of solid parts from which are fashioned all of the corporeal distinctive entities, while the 3 entrusted to Moses were those that proceeded from the air and the fire, the elements that are most prolific for life. The Lord, listen to this, the Lord is a man of war, and as king of flesh and blood devises various stratagems against his enemy, so God attacked the Egyptians in various ways. He brought 10 plagues down upon them. When a province rises up in rebellion, its sovereign lord sends first his army against it to surround it and cut off the water supply. And if the people are contrite, well and good. If not, he brings noisemakers to the field against them. If the people are contrite, well and good. If not, he orders darts to be discharged against them. And if the people are contrite, well and good. If not, he orders his legions to assault them. If the people are contrite, well and good. If not, he causes bloodshed and carnage amongst them. And if the people are contrite, well and good. If not, he directs a stream of hot naphtha upon them. And if the people are contrite, well and good. If not, he hurls projectiles at them from the ballistae. And if the people are contrite, well and good. If not, he has scaling ladders set up against their walls. And if the people are contrite, well and good. If not, he casts them into dungeons. If the people are contrite, well and good. If not, he slays their magnates. Thus did God proceed against the Egyptians. First, he cut off their water supply by turning their rivers into blood. He refused to let the Israelites go. He sent the noisy, croaking frogs into their entrails. They refused to let the Israelites go. And he brought lice against them, which pierced their flesh like darts, and they refused to let the Israelites go. Then he sent barbarian legions against them, mixed hordes of wild beasts, and they refused to let the Israelites go. And he brought the slaughter upon them, a very grievous pestilence, and they refused to let the Israelites go. And he poured out naphtha over them, burning blains, and they refused to let the Israelites go. And he caused his projectiles, the hail, to descend upon them, and they refused to let the Israelites go. And then he placed scaling ladders against the walls for the locusts, which climbed them like men of war. And they refused to let the Israelites go. And then he cast them into dungeons of darkness. They refused to let the Israelites go. And then he slew their magnates, their firstborn sons. The plagues that God sent upon the Egyptians corresponded to the deeds they had perpetrated against the children of Israel, because they forced the Israelites to draw water from them, and they also hindered them from the use of their ritual baths. He changed their water into blood. Because he had said to the Israelites, "Go and catch our fish for us," he brought frogs up against them, making them swarm to their kneading troughs and their bedchambers, and hopping around, croaking in their entrails. It was the severest of all the 10 plagues. Because they had said to the Israelites, "Go and sweep and clean our houses, our courtyards, and our streets," he changed the dust of the air to lice, so that the vermin lay piled up in heaps, an ell high. And when the Egyptians put out their fresh garments, they were at once infested with the insects. And the fourth plague was an invasion of the land by hordes of all sorts of wild animals, lions, wolves, panthers, bears, and others. And they overrun the houses of the Egyptians. And when they closed the doors to keep them out, God caused the little animal to come forth from the ground. And they got through the windows and split open the doors and made a way for the bears, panthers, lions, and wolves, which swarmed in and devoured the people, down to the infants in their cradles. If an Egyptian entrusted his 10 children to an Israelite to take a walk with them, a lion would come and snatch away one of the children. A bear would carry off the second, and a serpent the third, and so on. And in the end, the Israelite would return home alone. The plague was brought upon them because they were in the habit of bidding the Israelites go and catch wolves and lions for their circuses. And they set upon them such errands to make them take up their abode in distant deserts, where it would be separated from their wives, and they could not propagate their race. Then God brought a grievous murrain into their cattle because they had pressed the Israelites into service as shepherds and assigned remote pasturing places to them to keep them away from their wives before the murrain came and carried off all the cattle and its flocks the Israelites were tending. The sixth plague was a boil breaking forth with blains upon man and upon beast, and this was the punishment of the Egyptians, because they would say to the children of Israel, "Go and prepare a bath for us unto the delight of our flesh and our bones. Therefore we are doomed to suffer with boils and flamed flesh." And on the account of the itch they could not leave off scratching, and while the Egyptians suffered thus, the children of Israel used their baths. Because they had sent the Israelites forth into the fields to plow and to sow, hail was sent down upon them, and their trees and their crops were destroyed. They had been in the habit of saying to the Israelites, "Go forth, plant ye trees for us, and guard the fruit thereon." Therefore God brought the locusts to the Egyptian border to eat all the residue of that which escaped and remains to them from the hail. For the teeth of the locust are the teeth of a lion, and he hath the jaw teeth of a great lion. Because they would throw the Israelites in the dungeons, God brought darkness upon them, the darkness of hell, so that they had to grope their way, that he sat and could not rise up to his feet, and that he stood and could not sit down, and the affliction of darkness served another purpose amongst the Israelites. There were many wicked men who refused to leave Egypt, and God determined to put them out of the way. But that the Egyptians might not say they had succumbed to the plague like themselves, God slew them under the cover of the darkness, and in the darkness they were buried by their fellow Israelites, and the Egyptians knew nothing of what had happened. But the number of these wicked men had been very great, and the children of Israel spared to leave Egypt, or a small fraction of the original Israelitish population. The 10th plague was the slaying of the firstborn, and it came upon the Egyptians because of their intention to murder the men, children of the Israelites at their birth. And finally, Pharaoh and his host were drowned in the Red Sea because the Egyptians had caused the men, children of the Israelites to be exposed in the water. Each of these plagues inflicted upon Egypt had another parallel cruel treatment according to the Israelites. The first was the punishment for the arrogant words by Pharaoh, "My Nile river is my own. I have made it for myself." The plague of the frogs brought down upon Egypt because he had said, "The frogs which sometimes inhabited the water shall take vengeance upon the Egyptians for having desired to destroy the nation destined to be the bearers of the Torah, and the Torah is likened unto water." God sent vermin upon them, saying, Let the lice made of the dust of the earth take vengeance upon the Egyptians for having desired to destroy the nation whose seed is like unto the dust of the earth. Hordes of beasts, lions and wolves and swarms of serpents came down upon them because God said, These animals shall take vengeance upon the Egyptians for having desired to destroy the nation that is likened unto the lions, the wolves, and the serpents. A fatal pestilence was brought upon them because God said, The death shall take vengeance upon the Egyptians for having desired to destroy the nation that faces death for the glorification of the name of God. They were made to suffer with burning flames because, God said, the boils coming from the ashes of the furnace shall take vengeance upon the Egyptians for having desired to destroy the nation whose ancestor Abraham walked into the fiery furnace for the glorification of the name of God. And he made hail to descend upon them because, he said, the white hail shall take vengeance upon the Egyptians for having desired to destroy a nation whose sins will be white. The locusts came upon them because God said, The locusts which are my great army shall take vengeance upon the Egyptians for having desired to destroy the nation that is called my host. Darkness, said God, which is divided from the light, shall come and take vengeance upon the Egyptians for desiring to destroy the nation upon which shineth the light of the Lord, while gross darkness covers over the other people. The 10th plague, the slaying of the firstborn, God inflicted, saying, I will take vengeance upon the Egyptians for having desired to destroy the nation that is my firstborn. And the night divided itself for Abraham, and his enemies might be vanquished. So I will pass through Egypt in the middle of the night. And as Abraham has proved by 10 temptations, so I will send 10 plagues upon the enemy of his children. I'm John. This has been the Abracast.
Thank you for listening, and we hope that you enjoyed the show. Please send an email or find us on social media and let us know what you think about the show. We would appreciate it if you would give us a 5-star rate and review wherever you find your favorite podcasts. You can find Stigmata Studios, graphic, novels, and comic books. Take control of your destiny. Understand your past. Put your present in context and know your future with a twist. Check out the Abracast Tarot card deck. Your body is your temple. So let's make sure you got a badass t-shirt on it. Variety of cool occult themed t-shirts. And other merch like stickers, wall art, mugs, and more. Welcome to the Red Archive. Get access to over 50 hours of archived episodes. More bonus audio. Additional exclusive content. All this for only $1 a month. Are you interested in the occult, history, conspiracy, and violence? Learn more at Abracast.com.